Aloha, y'all. This is Rick Crawford, your host of The Sustainable Angler, and really excited about this year, 2022. Got some great guests lined up, so stay tuned for that. And just kind of wanted to mention one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is, we face a lot of global problems that are these huge problems like biodiversity loss and climate change. And these are things that are massive systemic challenges and problems. And how do we face them? And how do we be part of the solution? And I sort of keep coming back to thinking about, well, I think maybe it could start with what can we do in our own community to make an impact, and even at the individual level, what can we do to be a better person and a better company and a better steward and member of the community. And so I think that's something that has just been popping up in my mind recently, which is why I'm excited to get this season of The Sustainable Angler kicked off with Bryan Cordell, the executive director of the Sustainability Institute, which is a local nonprofit here in Charleston, South Carolina. And we dive into everything from some of the environmental challenges that we face here in Charleston, like sea level rise and development and stormwater runoff, and how Sustainability Institute is helping to solve some of these problems through their programs. They have a green building certification called Charleston Rises. They do weatherization projects for low-income families, which help them to not only reduce their energy bills, but also helps them to reduce their carbon footprint, and also the amazing work that they do through their Environmental Conservation Corps, which is through AmeriCorps, and they help, they recruit at-risk and young people ages 18 to 24, give them some training and like through things like energy efficiency and things like that, and help them to make a positive impact in our community while getting some valuable training and work skills. So again, really excited about this interview. I hope y'all enjoy, and thanks for tuning in. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, a sustainable business consultancy whose vision is to protect what we love and leave behind a socially just, economically inclusive, and environmentally restorative planet for the benefit of future generations. Measure and improve your sustainability performance with Emerger Strategies. To learn more, visit www.emergerstrategies.com. Thanks for listening to Sustainable Angler, first episode of 2022. And today I have Bryan Cordell from the Sustainability Institute here in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks for joining the podcast today.
Hey, Rick, it's my pleasure. I'm an avid listener to your podcast and a big fan of what you do. So, pleasure to be here.
I appreciate the kind words and thanks for listening. There's literally tens of people that listen to this. So Bryan, I guess a little context for everyone that is listening is, I moved to Charleston, I guess it's like 8 years ago probably, and the Sustainability Institute was one of the first organizations that I was trying to get plugged into, like the sustainability scene, I guess, if you will, in Charleston. And so y'all have been around for a long time, but I was wondering if y'all, or if you could provide a little bit of background and history. We call it SI, but Sustainability Institute here in Charleston.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, I obviously love what we do at the Sustainability Institute, but there are so many good environmental organizations focused on conservation and sustainability in Charleston. So we are really proud to be sort of a network of organizations that do this work. And we're just happy that people get involved with any one of us. But yeah, our organization's about 2 decades old. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. And our mission is to empower our region's most vulnerable communities to achieve housing security, equity, and climate resilience. And so we come at sustainability from a few different angles. A lot of our work over the years has been focused on sort of the urban planning side of things. So we've done a lot of climate action, greenhouse gas reduction plans for local communities and municipalities. So we've been really engaged in that work over the years. We do a lot of workforce training. And for that, we're specifically have been focused on the energy efficiency industry and training people to really get plugged into conservation jobs that are focused on energy conservation. And I know we'll touch later on about our AmeriCorps program that's all around those goals.
Yep.
And we also operate a housing weatherization program that's been going on for about 12 years. So that's a big part of our business. And recently we've started doing land conservation activities. And so, that's a whole different set of activities that we do around conservation that take place in the outdoor environment.
Yeah, no, that's super cool, and I definitely want to dive deeper, and we will continue to, or we will a little bit later in the conversation. But one of the things that I was kind of thinking about as you were saying this, that I always found unique about the Sustainability Institute, that I really love about it is the fact that you're helping, in some cases, low income families to conserve energy, and the sort of the bonus and the added benefit is that's helping everyone reduce their carbon footprint. So I know that we'll dive deeper into that, but that leads me to what I wanted to say next, which is, what are, from your perspective, I mean, you've been in Charles, I've been here 8 years. So you've been here, I know you've been here longer than I have. I mean, what have you seen in terms of the impacts of climate change since you've been a Charlestonian, I guess?
Yeah. Wow. There's so many of them. It's kind of like, where do you start? But
yeah,
how you mentioned a lot of our work has been focused on the built environment, and we deal specifically with the challenge of what families face in their homes related to, high energy bills, and how that's just economically debilitating for particularly our low income families. And, one of the things that I've seen steadily change over the last 2 decades here in our area is a dramatic increase in energy bills, energy costs for families. And so, that's a big priority for us, is helping families with that. And of course, there is as you mentioned, a big positive environmental impact by doing that work too. So I would say there's a lot of things on the side of the built environment that conditions that we've seen change over the years, particularly with, development on the increase and those issues. But, on the side of the natural environment, certainly flooding is one of the biggest topics here in Charleston. It's written about daily in the papers. The number of tidal floods that we see increasing on a yearly basis is absolutely astonishing. Doesn't matter what part of Charleston or the Low Country you live in. It's something that you deal with on a practically everyday basis. And so, certainly we've been watching that increase. But alongside that, you've got habitat loss. Sea levels are rising, flooding is increasing. We're losing habitat while that happens. Certainly, there's all kinds of problems that are associated with the stormwater runoff that's happening from the flooding and the storms that we see taking place. A lot of different changes in our natural environment that we experience here in the Low Country that directly relate to all kinds of different climate impacts.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like, well, I won't say that that I like habitat loss. What I guess what I'm trying to say is like everything that I read, it's so easy to get caught up in I think the context of, hey, there's habitat loss happening in the Amazon rainforest, and not think about, hey, well, what's happening in my backyard? So what is the impact of this new development that's being put in? And how is that going to impact biodiversity where we live? And what is the, okay, well, if they're going to put in a new development, what is that stormwater runoff? How is that going to affect flooding and everything else? So that's a good reminder to, hey, to not just think about these global scale problems. This is likely due to population happening in anywhere that anyone lives,
Yeah, I mean, you hit that right on the spot. And, here in the Low Countries, our wetlands are absolute treasures that provide really important ecological benefits, including habitat. And, we're losing, wetlands at an astonishing rate. And that's a real big problem. And some of that is a result of sea level rise and climate change. But you also hit the nail on the head when you said that one of the challenges that we're dealing with is just overall population increase and the increase in development that's associated with that. And, as we build more homes, we put more cars on the road, all these stressors on our built environment, there is a direct negative impact to our natural environment that occurs along that process.
Yeah. And look, and kind of, so talking about the built environment, this is really cool. So can you tell me more, talking about the built environment, can you tell me more about Charleston Rises and what is it? What is specific to it about the Low Country? How is it helping to solve some of these problems that we're talking about?
Yeah, well, so here in Charleston, it's, really important as we think to the future and how do we reduce carbon emissions citywide? How do we build more buildings that are energy and water efficient and, sustainable in all the right ways? It's important that we do that to some type of standard and that we have a guidepost associated with that. And, back in 2013, 14, when we first came up with this vision for the Charleston Rises program, there had been very little market penetration from the other green building programs and standards that are popular across the country here in South Carolina. And there's a lot of different reasons for why that was happening. You know, some of the typical ones that you hear of just perceived cost increases when you build to those standards, to, you know, worrying about headaches that are associated with the construction documentation. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons why that wasn't happening. But what we wanted to do with our program was create a simplified, streamlined program that really focused on creating a high-performing building. And for us, high performance meant at least 30% more energy and water efficient beyond code. And so, you know, our vision was if when we do new construction here in Charleston, if it can all be high performing and we can hit those targets, then we're really making a significant difference. And we're, you know, really able to reduce those carbon emissions that are associated with the built environment.
Yeah, and can you also talk about, you just mentioned it, but like I was sort of in the green building world on a little bit of in a different way, working for a software company at one point in time. But one of the challenges that you hear anyway, right, from general contractors and things, are that, hey, you know, this is really difficult to achieve, or this paperwork is complex, and can you elaborate on some of those challenges that they face, and maybe even how is Charleston Rises helping them overcome some of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges throughout the process of designing and building a green building that are just really hard for the design teams and contractors to deal with. And a lot of the green building programs are point-based. You know, there's different categories for different things that you might be pursuing. And so a lot of what often happens is these projects start chasing points.
Yeah.
But you don't have a local reviewer. You don't have like an on-the-ground person that's interacting with your team. And design and construction is an iterative process, right? And so, part of our vision with our program was we don't want this to be just about a checklist. We also don't want to make it such a headache for the people that are pursuing it, that it just becomes, complex to a point that it doesn't get done and it turns people off. And so from the get-go, our vision was we really need to simplify the process as much as possible. And we also need to be, provide the local on-the-ground expertise that you can access constantly and interact with on the fly. And so, that's what we do. We use a really cool software called Green Badger. It's a company that's based out in Savannah that does all the construction it's the platform by which you do all the construction documentation, and it's super slick and easy to use. The whole, design and construction team have real-time access to it. You don't have to do anything that's not in the system. And so we train the teams how to use that, and the whole process is done in this Green Badger software. And then we, unlike most of the programs that you find around the country, we actually go out on site and do inspections. Like we do an insulation inspection. And, the reason that we do that is it allows us to put eyes on the project and really make sure that we're, catching things as they happen. And the result, hopefully, is that it's a better constructed building. And so it's just a much more intimate relationship than what most green building projects have with their certification programs.
Yeah, and I can speak to that having some experience with LEED and some others, green globes and things like that. As for anyone listening that has doesn't know anything about green building, the process to get the building certified, you through depending on the rating program, there's different categories, energy or location and things like this, a number of different types of categories. You earn points, and then you have to provide supporting documentation. The challenge with that is that some of the supporting documentation can be difficult to find. And to your point, with on-site inspection, like what happens after, like what if they put up all the drywall and forgot to do an inspection for something in the wall? Like they'd have to, oh, well, we don't have documentation of that. We're going to have to rip the drywall open and take another picture of it. Like it's not
right.
The best design system for something related to sustainability. So that's really cool that y'all are using the efficiencies of a software technology combined with, hey, we know the low country, we're here, and we're going to come by and make sure everything looks good from our standpoint, so that at the end of the day, the performance is the performance of the building. It's not about, like you said, it's not about the points. It's about, are we conserving water? Are we conserving energy? And how is that positively impacting the new construction and here in the low country?
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about that, just on that note, is we've designed our program with flexibility in mind. We want these buildings, the output to be a 30% more energy and water conserving building over code. And the way that you get there, we have a framework. We have certain actions, required actions, and then some optional actions that will help you get there. But we're also very flexible, and we understand that not every building functions the same way, is occupied the same way, performs the same way. And so from our perspective, there has to be a certain amount of flexibility in terms of how you get there. And so, we have a pretty, rigorous standard. But I think we have the right amount of flexibility that really hopefully allows a lot more buildings and building types to, use this approach.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's super cool. And for I don't know, for anyone listening to this, to, just to put this in context of sort of why, at least in my opinion, obviously there's climate change, right? So for reducing energy usage, we're reducing our footprint essentially. So better for the climate. But one of the big things I think that often gets overlooked, maybe not in the American West, but I think maybe here, is water use, and so just being able to conserve 30% more water above code is a huge win.
Yeah, you're right. And, some of the other things that we touch on are, locally sourced materials. We think that's really important because there's, so many environmental impacts and waste that's associated with, where we get our materials from. Yeah. And so we want those to be as close to the site as possible. We want them to be healthy. We really care about occupant health in these buildings. And so we look at, low VOC, paint, sealants, adhesives, furniture. So, there's a number of different things that we care about in reference, as it relates to a high performing building.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned some of the other programs, and, from our perspective, going through any green building certification program is good. And a lot of these programs complement each other. I'm trying to remember what the saying is, a rising sea lifts all boats, or something like that. And so, You can use our program and also use LEED. We've created like a dual path, so you can get certified under both programs. And what's just really important is that buildings are being certified, buildings are being commissioned, we're creating more high-performing buildings in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and as part of, so just consider, the impact it would have if every building was, say, Charleston Rises certified. I mean, that was 30% more energy efficient, that conserved 30% more water, that had healthier materials, that had, local materials, I mean, so to elaborate on that just slightly, it's okay. Well, if I bought, this is completely off the cuff, but I bought a countertop that was manufactured in, I don't know, South Africa. Well, consider the carbon footprint of that countertop compared to what if there was one that was sourced in South Carolina, that came from South Carolina. Just the transportation footprint alone makes that a more sustainable material, and that's putting money in the local economy, which is, there's just all these benefits to green building, and it's I feel like it's because for some, I guess some types of certifications may be a little bit more challenging or they're different, but at the end of the day, the goal is the same, right? We need more sustainable and high performance buildings so that we can address climate change while also develop in the right way.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Rick.
All right. So on the note of some of these other programs that the Sustainability Institute has, how are some of these additional programs working to help solve some of the climate change problems, but just other issues that we're facing here in Charleston?
Yeah, well, since we were talking about the built environment, I guess I'll just mention our work, the weatherization work that we do, because one of the big challenges that we have here in the Low Country is an older housing stock, and we have so many homes that were constructed pre-1980, when energy codes were first introduced, and we have so many historic homes. And so we have a really old and inefficient building stock. And, from a equity perspective, our low-income families that, are in economically disadvantaged, underserved communities, this is one of their biggest challenges. Their, energy bills often represent one of their, highest monthly household expenses. We see families paying $350 to $550 a month or more just to heat and cool their homes. And, for a low-income family, that's just a terrible burden. And we also know that, there's part of the equity issue is that our low-income residents in our Black households spend more of their household family income than higher income and white households. And, that's a real problem. In fact, low-income households pay somewhere around 7% of their household income on utilities, whereas higher income households pay, just over 2%. So it's like a threefold increase. The, median energy burden for Black households is 43% higher than for white households. And so these are some real equity problems in our community. And so we have a weatherization program that we've been operating for 12 years. We go in, we try to seal these homes up in the right way, and perform all kinds of upgrades inside that help families immediately reduce their energy bills. And then alongside that, we do a lot of training, a lot of education and training of families to teach them about all the simple, no and low cost things that they can do to further reduce their energy bills. And so, it's all about empowering families to start taking control over these issues, and then hopefully improving the efficiency of these homes over time. And all of the, repairs, upgrades that we make in these homes are designed to last, a generation or more. So we're really trying to help sustain, the durability of these homes across generations.
That's awesome. And that's pretty wild too. I mean, some of those stats about, when you consider it being that much of your income just because the house you live in may be older and hasn't been weatherized. But I was wondering if you could elaborate on what goes into weatherizing a home. What does it take to do that? What do y'all go in and do? You and I know what that means, but I'm wondering if some people understand what all that entails.
Yeah, well, it can look like different things in different regions across our country, but here in our, warm and humid environment, there's a series of about 6 or 7 things that we typically do in just about every home. One is we go in and we insulate attics and crawl spaces. And one of the things that astonishingly we find is that many of the homes we go into have no insulation at all. And so, insulating homes is really important. But one of the things that, every home needs is to have its, building envelope sealed up to reduce air infiltration. What we don't want to see is that, people are paying a lot of money to heat and cool their homes, and that's all seeping to the outside because they just have such a leaky house. And that's a really big cause of high energy bills in our region. So sealing up that house by caulking, weather stripping, spray foaming it, there's a series of measures that we'll do to tighten up the home. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We do complete lighting change out. So we install, LED bulbs throughout. We install programmable thermostats to give homeowners more control over their energy use. So smart thermostats is a big one. We install insulation pipes on hot water heaters, seal up attic accesses, which is typically a place where you see a lot of energy loss in a home. And then there's, a whole series of, well, I guess I should mention, we do HVAC duct sealing. We find that the rate of air leakage in HVAC duct systems is, really incredible. And so we go in there and make those systems a whole lot more efficient by sealing them up. And then there's a whole series of water saving things that we do, from installing low flow aerators and on sinks and, low flow shower heads, just a bunch of measures around water conservation as well, with the realization that not only are you helping a family save water, but you're also helping them save energy, because we're often paying to heat that water as we consume it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, those are just everything that you listed. I mean, just consider run a house without insulation. And I mean, having to just keep if any of y'all listening that live in the Southeast, particularly the Low Country, knows how hot it gets in August. And I can't imagine the energy bill. I mean, on running your AC constantly, because the house isn't energy efficient. So that's just I love that. That's just that was when I was first learning about y'all, when I first moved to town. That was one of the things that stuck with me. I was like, this is awesome. I mean, that's just it's helping people in need, and it's also good for the planet. Like it's a win-win.
Well, Rick, you just tied this into the heat issue, and December of 2021 was Charleston's second warmest December on record, and we know that the number of extreme heat days here in the South is increasing. Here in South Carolina, we average somewhere around 25 dangerous heat days a year. But by 2050, that's projected to be as many as 90 days annually. And
Wow.
So when you think of just the number of days in a calendar year where we're experiencing extreme heat is crazy. And, that is obviously affecting households in inefficient homes more than anyone else. It's, affecting their ability to stay cool from a health perspective, but it's also causing these, dramatic energy bills that they're experiencing. So yeah, it's, something that's really, really important that our communities start to get a handle on. How are we going to attack these thousands upon thousands of homes in our community that are not prepared for a changing climate?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and you mentioned this earlier, but then on top of that, rates continue to increase. So it's just like the heat goes up, the rates increase. And if they're not prepared for that by having a energy efficient or weatherized home, then it really is not a very good outcome.
Yeah. And, you have to ask yourself, like, what's the solution here? Because most of these low-income families can't afford to make repairs and, dramatic upgrades in their homes. So, we have to have weatherization services that can go in and offer assistance, but we also really have to pair that with education. So, we have to teach homeowners about all the things that they can do to, become empowered to deal with this issue.
And y'all, I know that y'all host some energy efficiency workshops and things like that to help with that?
Yeah, we facilitate, we call them energy and water conservation workshops, both in person and virtually every month. Our goal this year is to do 2 per month. So we have a calendar that will soon be going up on our website that will show the locations and dates of those. But for the virtual ones, anyone from anywhere around the world could join those workshops. And we try to make them fun and the material's easy to digest, and we really just want to get people engaged.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, all right, we'll come back to, I'll just go ahead and make a quick plug. It's sustainabilityinstitutesc.org for anyone who wants to check out that calendar. But we were talking about some of your, we talked about the built environment programs. Can we talk a little bit about the Environmental Conservation Corps and dive into that as well?
Yeah, this program's really been at the heart of our organization for, more than 12 years. And so we are a national affiliate of AmeriCorps, the Corps network. And the goal of, we call it the Environmental Conservation Corps, is the goal is to create the next generation of climate leaders in our community by tackling really critical conservation activities and projects that build coastal resiliency, expand educational access, improve quality of life in our communities, and protect our places that are most vulnerable. And so young adults join our AmeriCorps program. It is both service learning and workforce training. They typically serve, 3, 6, 9, 12 months in our program as volunteers. The whole time we're launching them out into the community to do service projects, but they're being trained, and then they're going out and doing this important conservation work. And, it's just been amazing to me to witness this over the past decade or so. We've had, a little bit more than 150 young adults come through the program who have contributed over 107,000 volunteer hours in our community.
Wow, that's unreal.
So, really doing, outstanding levels of work. And so we serve several different populations in our program, but we specifically recruit at-risk, economically disadvantaged young adults that are aged 18 to 24 into our program. And then we provide them with, job skills, industry certifications, all around conservation learning experiences. And the goal is to, provide these skills and then help them find careers in conservation. And so we do the job placement piece as well. So we are transitioning a young adult from, perhaps someone who doesn't really know what they want to do into a conservation career. And so the service learning piece of this, the activities that we actually do are two different things. One of them is the weatherization, which we just spoke about. So our AmeriCorps members are the ones that actually weatherize these homes and interact with these homeowners, under the supervision of a licensed contractor. And then the other side of it is outdoor land conservation activities. And so those focus on habitat restoration and what we call green infrastructure. And so there's a broad range of activities that they do that are all around coastal resilience. And it includes things like constructing living shorelines, doing water quality testing, monitoring, and data collection at specific fresh and saltwater sites around the Low Country. We build rain gardens as a measure of protecting our stormwater runoff. We restore habitat, we plant trees, we do river and beach sweeps. We go into places and remove invasive species and plant native species. So it's a real broad range of activities, but it all represents really important conservation work in our community.
Yeah, and I mean, and all of those things that you just mentioned are, from what we were kind of talking about is if we're talking about coastal resilience, it's well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, I start thinking about what we were talking about earlier, which was, you've got development happening, right? You've got population increasing. Well, how are we going to preserve some habitat, or how are we going to let, there are ecosystem services, I guess is the best way to describe it, that nature provides. So for us in Charleston and in the Low Country, to give an example of that, there's things like, barrier islands, outer islands, they can help reduce storm surge from a hurricane. Similar to, wetlands, they're going to help with cleaning water from storm water runoff. But also when you get development and all these hard surfaces, all that water has to rush out of there, and what's going with it is very polluted water. So y'all are doing water quality testing. All these things are interconnected, I guess, is my point. And so, I mean, you've got these things that are happening. It's not just climate change. It's biodiversity. It's habitat loss. It's all these things, and it's happening everywhere. And at least, sorry to toot y'all's horn, but I'll do it and say, y'all are providing solutions on the built environment side, but also equally as important is helping people in need and ensuring that there is another generation of leaders who want to protect ultimately the low country and the place that they're from, and hopefully that they love.
Yeah, Rick, I mean, you've got it right. What we're really focused on is building this next generation of young conservation leaders. And what we find is that people in our communities, particularly young people, really get it. Like they know that climate change is happening, and they are motivated to do something about it. And they are energized at a level that we haven't seen before, because they know what the dire consequences of a changing climate are for our local environment. Doesn't, as we said earlier, it doesn't take much to see those impacts on a daily basis. But, this, next generation of young people really gets it at a level that I don't think we've seen before. And so providing them with opportunities to get out into their environment and explore what they can do to solve these problems is just an awesome experience. And whether someone wants to do that on the built environment side or on the natural environmental side, it doesn't really matter. There's enough conservation work that needs to be done in our community that, there's plenty of opportunity for whatever you want to do. But what we provide at the Sustainability Institute is the mechanism around which young people can explore those opportunities and at the same time, learn skills and serve their community.
Yeah, which, are service to your community. I mean, that's just, it's invaluable in and of itself. So I just, my hat's off to y'all. I love what y'all are doing. I always have. When I first moved here, it was so easy to get connected to like-minded people through the Sustainability Institute. So anyone who's in Charleston, I would say, I'm sure Bryan can elaborate more on this, but I mean, get connected with Sustainability Institute, whether it's through their social media channels or their website or newsletters or anything like that. If that's what you're interested in and want to support a great organization, and I'm saying this not at all to talk about my company, but I would encourage other businesses, if you're a 1% for the Planet member, to consider supporting nonprofits like the Sustainability Institute. That's something that I'm proud to do through Emerger Strategies. And I think that there's a lot of businesses who, once they understand that the impact that the sustainability has in our community, it's a little bit of a no-brainer. Well, whether you're 1% of the Planet member or not, but if you are, it's an easy way to give back to an organization that's doing a lot of positive things in our community. Well,
I'll tell you what, your support and the support of businesses like yours, and of course 1% for the Planet members and a lot of other businesses, really make our work possible. I mean, we would not be able to do what we do without the funding support that we get from the private sector. And so, just aligning your business interests with, our values and our work as a nonprofit can really make powerful things happen in our community.
Yeah. Well, Bryan, I think that's probably a pretty good note to wrap on. Unless you have anything you want to add, I definitely want to make sure people know where to go to get more information and things like that. But I'll let you run with that. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and all that y'all do to make Charleston a better place to live and work. Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you highlighting our work, and of course, everything that you're doing for us as a board member, helping lead our efforts. So Right back at you. We appreciate what you do as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, where is, I think I've got it up. What's the website again? I'm sorry. It's
it's www.sustainabilityinstitutesc.org. The SC is for South Carolina, so sustainabilityinstitutesc.org.
Perfect. And I'll make a shameless plea here, or maybe please not the right word, request, and say, think you can make a donation directly to the website too. So yeah. Don't be scared to make a contribution, and help support the work that SI is doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler. The show's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you like what you're hearing, would really appreciate y'all leaving a rating and review. That helps just give us a boost and so more people can find the podcast. So I appreciate it. Special thanks to Bryan Cordell and the Sustainability Institute for everything they're doing to make Charleston a more sustainable place to live and work. We'll see you next time. Thanks.